Pop-Up Auto Repair. Today I wanted to get out the old cylinder head from the original engine on the 85 Isuzu pickup and take a look at it and give a little rundown on it, because this is going to be my next project, another 1.9 Isuzu engine rebuild. Now this has already been rebuilt completely by a professional machine shop locally, so I don't have to do anything to this. It's all done. It's been mounted, ran, and tested on the original engine before I pulled the original motor out of the Isuzu pickup. And what happened is I installed this with a new head gasket, thinking that I just had to replace the head gasket because the head gasket was blown. And the outcome was that I didn't tighten the head bolts down more than what the factory 72 foot-pounds of torque required. After realizing that the head bolts that I was reusing, and that had probably been reused 2 to 3 times already, had stretched, and they were stretching again as I was doing the initial torque from reusing the head bolts and installing this rebuilt head. So the head gasket would not compress and seal the combustion gases in the combustion chamber well enough, and as a result the engine was overheating. The needle would just rise and rise and rise and peg out at the top of the gauge. After about 30 to 40 minutes, it would be topped out and pegged, getting hot. Temperature, I'd let the engine overheat, and the temperature got to about 200 and about 205 or something, 205 Fahrenheit to 212, something like that. I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was well over the 180 normal. So I ended up saying screw it, and after I didn't realize what was going on, really. I wasn't sure what the problem was. I was thinking that I had a defective head gasket. And after the second time of removing this and reinstalling it with a new head gasket, it was still overheating. I realized that it was something else. And then I was thinking, oh, well, the block's cracked. The engine block has a crack in it somewhere. I didn't know if... so all sorts of things were going off. I was thinking about in my mind that the worst possible scenario, the block's cracked, could be some sort of capitulation, pitting in the cylinder wall area, which was blowing hot escape gases through some sort of micro pinhole in the cylinder wall going into the the water coolant reservoir inside the block and heating it up slowly that way. Because remember, it took like 30 minutes, 40 minutes for the temperature gauge to peg out and get to that high temp mark. So it was like it was slowly heating up and overheating over a 30 to 40 minute period. So I was thinking, oh, maybe it's just a small pinhole, somewhere. But there was no external leaks in the engine block. And so it had to be an internal crack or some sort of escaped gases somewhere. And I said, well, I just got to pull the block out now. I got to make sure there's not a crack in the block. Take the whole engine out, disassemble it, take the block over to a machine shop and have them magnaflux it. And then I'll know for sure that the block is either okay or it's got a crack in it. Well, as it turns out, the block wasn't. Actually, I didn't have. What I did was at that point is that I decided that I was going to use the other block, the spare block that I bought from a wrecking yard on the East Coast. And I was going to have that block checked and save this block, the original block, to the truck because it was really running good and smooth and had a lot of compression to it. Even though it was overheating, you could still tell that the engine was running good, had power. So I said, well, just in case there's not a crack in this block, I want to save it for a better rebuild down the road. And just use this used block from the wrecking yard, have it checked out, and use that instead. And so what happened is there was no crack in the other block except for the one that I created with that broken bolt trying to extract it. And so none of the blocks had a crack in them. And I haven't had this original block checked for cracks yet, or cleaned or checked or anything, but I'm pretty sure it's not cracked. Because it was, the gasket was causing the overheating, both times that I replaced the gasket. So I'm pretty sure that was the only problem. So yeah, this will be a part of my second rebuild. And usually what happens is if it does crack on these aluminum cylinder heads, it'll be right here between the valves in this thin-walled area. It's usually the thin-walled areas that crack the most, it seems like. But this did have a lot of work done on it. And looking at the receipt here, you got a bronze liner. I'm assuming that's a guide. What else do we have here? Cold tank clean, $25. Pretty cheap, actually. We've got install K-line bronze guides and Diamond H. Is that Diamond Hone? I'm not sure what that is. Pressure test cylinder head, $7.50. Valve grind, $195. That's what costs the most money on these, is grinding the valves. They replaced one valve, groove keeper, which retains the valve, and under spring-loaded pressure retains the spring. And they replaced the seals, standard, service, and yeah, you know, standard head rebuild. So that's that. It's ready to go. And one other thing I wanted to touch on was the camshaft line bore. That's the carriage area, you know, kind of like crankshaft journal carriage on a block. The carriage area for the shaft, all aluminum. There's no camshaft bearings in this aluminum head, which I thought there would be. I was kind of shocked a little bit when I pulled this apart and there was no camshaft bearings, and I thought, well, somebody forgot to put them in. And then, you know, I found out from the machine shop they don't get those. So the camshaft just rests and rotates in an aluminum carriage, machined out carriage, and these can wear out because the aluminum is soft. The camshaft's cast or forged steel or something. I think it's forged steel and special grade metal. And sometimes these camshafts will wear out, or they'll warp a little bit, or you know, things can happen. And so they'll wobble a little bit in there. They'll wear out the aluminum carriage seats, and because they might develop a little bow in the camshaft or something as it's turning, you'll get like a worn out clearance, outside clearance over time. And the maximum tolerance for this carriage being out of alignment is 0.8 of an inch, I believe. And so what happens, they say, is you will lose oil pressure, something like that, or you might lose oil pressure, you know, something can happen. Now, I have had that problem, and I ended up just putting the cylinder head back in the vehicle and running it while it was outside of clearance, while the line bore was outside of clearance, and I never had any problems with it. So who knows, you know. I think it's a rare occurrence for something like that to take place, but I don't recommend trying that, getting away with it. But you can't replace these, you know. Once these camshaft settings gets worn out, you know, you can't fix it. So you have to replace the head with a better one, which is a little work sometimes if you're trying to find one, you know, calling wrecking yards, doing parts searches. You know, you can't find them on eBay anymore. You know, parts stores don't carry them. They don't make them anymore. So you pretty much just have to find them at a wrecking yard, or maybe you get lucky and you find one on Craigslist. You know, somebody's selling one somewhere. And as far as the rocker arm shafts here, they're stationary. You can see the bolt going through here, locking them so they don't move. So usually you don't have to worry about these being warped or anything. I mean, not much. Sometimes they do, just from normal use, or if you get a bent valve, if you get a bent valve hits the piston, like in the middle area over here, pops it up, then these can bend a little bit. And I had one on a diesel engine one time, so I took it to work and I put it in a brake press and ended up straightening it out perfectly on a brake press at work. And I just had one that was bent, so that's not a big deal. Other than that, there's not much to really say about it. I will be doing another video on the block assembly next, probably. And I wanted to talk about how to determine if you can just get away with replacing the rings, doing a ring job rebuild without reboring the cylinders and get new pistons and all that stuff. But yeah, what factors determine if you can just replace the rings, do a ring job, or what factors determine taking it in, you having to take it in and have a rebore done? And we'll get into that in the next video. So I'm all done here. I'm gonna get going, and you guys take care. Things are a little bit crazy right now. Watch your backs. All right, I'm out.